we've been asking whether or not the ANC's January 8th statement is still relevant today. That's as President Cyril Ramaphosa gets ready to deliver this year's statement to us tonight. Well, let's find out now from political analyst Dr. Samadora Fikeni. Samadora, very good morning to you, and thanks so much for your time. So I suppose this is a question everyone's been asking for a couple of days now, is given the headspace the country is in at the moment, well, together with the rest of the world as well, do you really think that an ordinary member of the public wants to hear about the state of the ANC and its challenges at the moment?
Well, ANC has been a dominant political force since 1994 and even before then. Therefore, to ignore what is happening within the ANC would be to ignore what is happening in the country itself. So that is one simple reason to say people pay attention to this dominant political force, in a sense, because when it has problems, the country has problems.
Well, I suppose, yes, we would all say you can't ignore that this is a milestone. You have to mark it in some way. You have to be saying something. But it's also a time where we just want to know where we are. I think at the height of this devastating pandemic, we are even where we never thought we would be, even just a couple of months ago. So in the context of that, what should Cyril Ramaphosa be telling the nation? How should he be staying relevant, yes, to what you say, the state of the party, but where we are as a country at the moment, and what is our priority, what is top of mind for almost all of us at this moment?
Precisely because it's a ruling party, it has to reflect on the national priorities, especially the current pandemic, which is a crisis that has impacted so negatively and devastatingly on the country itself. Especially at this moment, the issues of vaccine logistics, as well as economic recovery are going to be dominant ones this coming year. And that in itself is what should come out more than the history of the organization, which many people are quite familiar with.
I mean, in terms of the pandemic and our handling, yes, and I suppose the economy would be the other thing top of mind in the context of, well, the damage that had existed already before COVID-19 and what has happened to us since, or what is happening to us since.
Without any doubt, ultimately, when the pandemic subsides, the biggest challenge that we're facing, which we were facing even before the pandemic, is the one of the economic downturn and the failure of our economy to grow to an extent of lifting up people, providing jobs. In fact, right now, it is the job hemorrhage that the country is facing. So that is very, very important. The state-owned companies used to be the bulwark of such economic recovery or economic growth. They too are on an ICU in the main. They need to recover themselves. So that is what government should come out clearly on how they are dealing with this particular matter.
Even corruption. I mean, we have state capture getting underway today. The issue of Ace Magashule, we see, is not top of any agenda or any list there when it comes to what we were expecting to hear tonight. But which raises the question, many people have been saying, given the history, the recent history of corruption, what we've seen, what's to say this is not going to creep in here again when it comes to saving lives in terms of COVID-19? Vaccination corruption, I think, is a term I heard as well. How should he be addressing that?
Well, I do think that he needs to assure the country that the ANC is still behind the fight against corruption, because if you have a corrupt government or a corrupt ANC, then it doesn't matter what economic recovery plan you have. It doesn't matter what vaccine you are going to have. It doesn't matter what policies you come up with, because they are going to be crippled by corruption.
So if I hear you correctly, Samadora, you're saying we don't want to go into the history of the ANC. That's certainly not what we want to be hearing tonight. We want to hear about the ANC and how he plans, or how it plans, to remain relevant in where and what has changed, I suppose, in this pandemic year, and what lessons it's learned, I suppose.
That is probably the most important thing. Remember, like driving a car, history is important to provide the context. But you can't drive on a highway driving 120 kilometers per hour using rear view mirror and being fixated with them. You must also use the windscreen, which is the future that we face. When you talk of the Internet of Things, digitization, the rolling out of spectrum and the broadband for the country. It is about the future rather than who was saying what in the previous conferences of Morogoro or Kabul.
Well, thanks very much for that. Well, I suppose we'll know this evening whether the President or his speechwriters have been taking heed of what the country actually wants to hear. Dr. Somadora Fikeni there, thanks so much for that.